Hello, this is Stormcloud ST2 and I'm going to be casting a game between July and mouzMaNa. In our right spawning position we're going to have Mana, and he's going to be our Protoss player for this game. And in the bottom position we're going to have July, and he is a Zerg player. If we look at the supplies, we can see that both these players obviously have very well developed openings, as most players will. Even people who aren't professional, your opening is what you always practice the most, just because in every game you have to do an opening. So really, the first minute and a half to 2 minutes doesn't vary at all, just because no matter what build you do, you're always going to want to get like your pylon of 9, and just certain things like that that I don't think are necessary to point out, so I'm not going to. This is from the DreamHack 2011 Summer Tournament, and it's in the round of 16. So obviously if these players can get this far, they're very good. They may not be as well known as some of the more obviously well known professional players, but they're both very good, and I think that we're going to see an interesting game between the two of them. We're both at 13th supply right now, and we have the gateway going down for mouzMaNa. And do we have a spawning pool yet? No, we don't, but we do have an assimilator down for July, which is very early. And there's the spawning pool as well. So if we go up to Mana's base, we see that he's getting the gas afterwards. And you know that the Zerg is doing something interesting if your Zerg player gets the gas before Protoss player. Because generally speaking, Protoss players use gas a lot more than Zerg does. So I think that this is interesting what we're seeing. We might be seeing some early roach play, or just trying to get metabolic boost out as quickly as possible. We also see that Mana is scouted the wrong way. He scouted the top position and the left, and now he at least knows where July is, but he'll be very late in scouting that, so I'm not sure if he's going to be able to react to this in time. However, his gateway is completed, and he is mining from his gas. If we look at the APM tab right now, we see they're both fairly even at around 250, which is very impressive, especially now that they have the APM set so it's not, if you're spamming it doesn't count that. So being at that high of an APM is very impressive, but that obviously shows also how good these players ought to be able to control that well. In fact, if we even look at Mana's cam, we can just see how much he's doing and how much he's clicking on everything. We have a second gas coming down now for Mana. I think this will be a good idea. We don't really know what kind of tech he's going for yet. We have just a Zealot out yet. But as a Protoss player, you basically always need that extra second gas. We're going to see Mana is trying to block the expansion down here and doing it successfully. He has July has 4 Zerglings out, but without the metabolic boost, they're not going to be able to catch this probe until they kill it. But we will actually put the view back on everyone. The expansion has gone down for July, so that will help him. We still see only 1 gas out, and he's not mining all from it right now. He got exactly enough gas, so he was just doing that so he could get metabolic boost quickly. Mana is actually chrono boosting on his warp gate. I don't think we'll be seeing a 4 gate out of this, but there's always a potential for it. We have a sentry coming out now. This is always good against Zerg players because sentries and force fields in turn are very good against blocking Zerglings. We see from July that metabolic boost is almost done, and he has a second queen out, which will obviously just be sent down to his natural. And we are still seeing constant probe and drone production from both players, which is not a surprise. We have interesting gateway placement by Mana. He has 1 gateway down here, and then he has another up here, and his third one obviously is walling him off. But we don't see a 4th gateway, so we might be seeing a 3-gate expander, a 3-gate robo. And at this point, based on his pylon placement right here, I think we might be seeing a 3-gate expand, which would be a smart choice just because he knows that July is expanded quickly, and it would be effective just to keep the economies even. And that natural has gone down for July right now. Already has the queen set down there so he can start getting the vomit on the hatchery. Right now, if we look at the production tab, we can see warp gates being produced, or gateways being produced. Warp gate is being researched, and it's almost done. And if we look at the units tab, we see there's a Zealot and 3 sentries, and only 2 Zerglings. So mouzMaNa is doing a good job of keeping his units up, and yes, he's doing a 3-gate expand here. He's adding a forge on there just so he can throw down some cannons to help defend his base. And he's doing a good job controlling controlling his units here, just making sure that the Zerglings don't get any easy probe kills. However, with that metabolic boost, that'll start to get harder. If we look at the income tab, we see it's fairly even, although since the Zerg player is on 2 base, he's not saturated yet, but he's already getting more. The Protoss player, since he's on 2 gas here, is getting more gas, but right now the Zerg player is getting about 200 to 300 minerals more per minute. So I think that this advantage won't last very long just because the expansion is about to finish for Mana. He actually has a surprising amount of sentries, and I really like this kind of play just because it's so effective against the Zerglings, and they don't do a lot of damage, but if you can get good force fields, it can be effective. And he also researched hallucination. I, being a noob, didn't see that, but he's going to use this Phoenix to try to force perhaps some Hydras out of the Zerg player or just for scouting. July is trying to break down these rocks, but with Zerglings that is a very slow process, and mouzMaNa will get the sentries down here just to sort of ward those lings off. We see for Mana, he's putting down a gas here, and he doesn't have a second gas in his base, but he's starting to mine it again. And with the Roach Horn down, we're probably going to start seeing some Roaches come out soon. Not yet. We actually have a second gas in the main base going down. So this might be we might be progressing towards some more tech besides Roaches after this. We have a couple Roaches out right now. We have 6 of them, and they're just working on breaking down these rocks again. And so Mana has to be careful that he's throwing down a gateway to pod, and he's going to try to wall this off. And really right now he can be attacked from 2 angles just because of these Roaches and the Zerglings. They can either attack from different positions or just go wherever they want with these rocks down now. So Mana's in a very uncomfortable position, and in fact he even has 2 probes here. He doesn't have the rally point set, or he does, but he has 2 probes. Okay, there we go. He fixes it. He has his natural down, but he doesn't really have any tech yet. He's researching 1 attack, and now he finally gets down the Robo, because I believe he only has 3 gateways right now. Actually 4, because of this one detonator. He only has 4 gateways, and when you're on 2 base at 9 minutes, you want to have a lot more production facilities than that. We still see Zerglings trying to poke in a little bit, not doing much, and we have 3rd base coming down for July. I think this is a smart move, just because Mana's really not going to push out anytime soon. Just because he's stuck in his base with his army here, we get a 5th gateway, and our Robo should be finishing soon. And we also get this gas down in the natural, which is not a surprise. Just because, especially with this robotics, he'll probably start getting some Colossus or Immortals, which both cost a lot of gas, so always a good thing to do. And it looks like he's going to be taking a 3rd sometime here. Hopefully he can kill this Zergling hiding up here just so July doesn't scout it. And July actually is keeping these Zerglings out here, trying to keep a light contain on the Protoss player. However, now we should be able to start seeing some tech out of this robotics facility. 3rd base is almost down for July. He's producing right now actually a lot of things. He's getting Burrow, he's getting the Zerg Missile Tax level 1, and the Glio Reconstruction, and he's also getting Groove Spines. So we're seeing a lot of upgrades right now, and he's starting to get out some Roaches, and he's still keeping this light contained. We see the Protoss player Mana is starting to move out now. He needs to be careful of those Lings, but with the army as right now, I think a couple Lings won't be able to trap him very bad. However, with these Roaches coming up, we need to get some good force fields off, and try to do as much damage as we can, obviously. Good force fields, blocking back, he gets a couple free Ling kills there. The Roaches are still pursuing though. Thankfully he warps in some more Stalkers, and it doesn't look like he's producing anything from this Robo yet, so I'm not sure what we're going to be seeing from that. The problem for Mana is, since these rocks are broken down, is the Zerg player can just run down here and start attacking his 3rd base before the Protoss player can come down there to defend it. However, he might catch the Roaches off guard here, which he does. Thankfully they can burrow, and without an observer, I think he has one, I'm not sure where it is though. Yes, he's sending it over here. Without the observer, it's going to be very hard for Mana to see these, obviously, because they're burrowed. Finally he has the observer, so he's going to try to get some of them. Used up a lot of force fields, and this 3rd base is almost finished, but it might get sniped down by those Roaches. Doesn't look like it will though. This Protoss army is still continuing to get bigger, and finally we have some production starting out this robotics facility, but the problem is that Mana doesn't have enough supply. There we go, it finally starts it. But he wasn't able to begin production for a while. At the Zerg player, however, now we're seeing a tech switch to Hydras and Zerglings, which could be effective. Hydras are very good against Stalkers, and really anything, especially we might We have the Robotics Bay coming down for mana, so thankfully these Colossus will be able to counter that soon enough. But Hydras could do some damage before that. Third base is down, but it's not doing anything. We have an engagement down here, and we see this early Zerglings are getting cut off, but the Hydras are still coming. We have the force field off on them. If we look at the Army tab right now, whoa. If we look at, and sorry about that. If we look at the Army supply, we see that July is a slightly bigger army, but not really much, and slightly more workers. And, whoops, I'm the wrong key, sorry about that. Thankfully, these Stalkers are able to do a pretty good amount of damage to these Hydras. However, oh my goodness. However, there's an extra bunch of them coming in, so we need to be careful here. We have a Colossus, yes, a Colossus. Holy cow. Squeak much. Okay, we have a Colossus coming out here, which is going to help kill the Hydras very much. But we don't see any more Hydra production. Instead, we see a Spire, which is actually going to be perfect timing, because once Mana starts to get out more Colossus, he'll be able to use that Spire to build some Corruptors, which will easily counter Colossus. However, Mana has a lot of Stalkers right now, in fact, like only Stalkers, so that should be able to stop the Corruptors unless July gets them in huge numbers. There we go, now we have 2 Zealots. This Probe, this whole game has been sitting here next to this Pylon for Mana, hasn't really been doing anything. Then we see, if we look at the Army tab right now, we see July has a slightly bigger army. As far as workers, they're about equals. Considering they're both on 3 bases is good. And neither of them are very saturated in their third base. mouzMaNa has better saturation. However, the Zerg player really doesn't have that much. Finally, he has some drones popping. But however, we see the Zerg player is starting to build up a much bigger army. He has some more roaches coming out, which might catch Mana. I was surprised. Thankfully, his one Colossus out, but he does not have Thermaranks yet. It's going to help deal with the Hydras very well. We actually have an Overseer coming in, I guess just to snipe any observers. Looks like the Zerg player is actually pushing forward pretty good. If we look at the upgrades on the Zerg player, we see that he has 1 in the attack, and then the Protoss player has 1 armor and 1 attack. So we actually see better upgrades for Mana, but if we look at the production, we're getting missile attacks level 2 for Zerg player, and thermal lance only for the Protoss player. And down here, his third base for Mana is not very well protected. We could easily see some pushing down there with Zerglings for counterattack, which we need to be very careful of, as we learned from Whiterot yesterday. Not very big Hydra numbers, but we have a large wave of Roaches and Zerglings coming in right now. And this third base still is not very saturated for July, which I don't think is very good. You want to try to mine out your expansions quickly, and you want to have your main base mining for as long as possible. So I think it would be a smart idea to transfer some of these probes just to equal out the saturation, but I think it's okay. We have 2 Colossus out now for Mana. However, we have 2 Corruptors coming out for July, but that definitely won't be enough to counter these 2, especially with all these stalking numbers. July starts to engage, though it doesn't end very well. Some force fields could be very effective against this, but it doesn't look. We only have 2 sentries, so I don't think it'll do well. And the Zerg army just creeps up on the Protoss player's army and just completely surrounds him. And I think that we may have lost the game just because he could still win, but it did a significant amount of damage to the Protoss army. You see that good strat. We have a second boss coming out, which is significantly helped. In fact, that may have also help the Protoss player come out ahead in that battle, just because that second boss did so much damage, and also the thermal lance then it does a lot. We should have another Colossus coming out soon. No further upgrades on the Protoss player, but for the Zerg player we do have 2 attack out on those Roaches and Hydras. A couple Zerglings here. Nice saturation in third base, which I must compliment, and still for July, not very much. However, if we look at the army supply now, July is still ahead, just because with his macro, he can just produce so much because he's a Zerg player. So you always need to be careful as a Protoss player to keep building these strong units like Colossus, just because you may have a smaller supply, but they'll do a lot more damage. So you obviously want to continue Colossus production, which he is doing. Right now he's not researching any further upgrades, but he has no Twilight Cancel, so the only thing he could research is Shields level 1, which is good, but when you compare it to like an attack or armor upgrade, really those are a lot more beneficial to a Protoss player with this Okay, good. The Stalker's going to the Watchtower because he's sitting down there for a minute. We might see an engagement try to be forced out from Mana right here, but I don't think we will just because the Zerg player's trying to pull back till he gets a better army. And the army actually for July is 15 supply ahead of our Protoss players. And if we look at the income, right now our Protoss players barely ahead, I think, again, just because of this saturation, and I apologize for keep mentioning that. If we look at the units killed, however, we see for Mana there's a lot more, which may be why it seems to have a slight advantage in this game. We finally do see an engagement. We're going to see no force with though. These Colossus do a lot of damage, but up close like this, they don't do as well. They do a lot better when they're further away. So that's going to be a disadvantage for the Protoss player just because this army is so close up on him. But I think he has enough upgrades and enough units to be able to pull this off fairly. These Corruptors, however, haven't really been focused right down, and they've been killing all the Colossus. And I think that this last one may fall down. However, July does GG, and I think that the reason that Mana lost this is just, or that Mana won this, is just because he had good upgrades, and he did a good job, especially if we look at the units killed. He just killed a lot more units. The Zerg player kept trying to poke it up here, but mouzMaNa did a really good job of cleaning that up. Besides that, I can't really say exactly what July did wrong. He might have wanted to take some extra bases, saturate this more, and the Hydras, the problem was, by the time you got out Hydras, they were Colossus for Mana, and then by the time you got Corruptors, they weren't able to kill the Colossus because there had already been like 2 or 3 engagements without Corruptors where the Colossus had done so much damage. It was almost too late at that point. So I think that was a problem. For the most part, these players both did very good though. I was deeply impressed by that. And this has been Stormcloud SC2, and I thank you for watching. This is from the DreamHack 2011 Summer Tournament, and this was a game where Mana won. Thank you all.